Hi, everyone. And on behalf of SpareBank 1 SMN, as you are in the offices of, the early stage investing launchpad, NTNU Excel, and the Norwegian Crowdfunding Association, just to have everyone right, I welcome you to this F3 Academy in crowdfunding and the future of crowdfunding. I'm looking forward to a really exciting late afternoon and evening for some of you, discussing this topic, getting a view of different aspects on crowdfunding, both the traditional and the new crowdfunding aspects. So we have a really tight schedule. We're going to run a breakout session around before the Pecha later on, just so you know that, to fill up your coffee, or anyone have to run for the kindergarten. But we're going to kick it off straight away with Geir from the Norwegian Crowdfunding Association, trying to show you a bit how is crowdfunding in Norway, providing you with some statistics. And let's see how we're going to start off.
Thank you. My name is Geir, and I am the chairman of the Norwegian Crowdfunding Association, as well as the CEO and co-founder of Funding Partner, one of the 17 platforms that we have as members of the Crowdfunding Association. So it's super exciting for me to be here today to tell you a little bit about crowdfunding. And it's cool to see so many being interested in this new field and in industry. And also our association is actually quite new. It was this spring in May that we all got together as platforms, created the association to jointly work together to spread the word about all the good things about crowdfunding, as well as to try to do our part to lobby towards better regulations and making sure that this industry succeeds and excels as it has done in a lot of other countries. So with that said, I want to tell you and try to educate you a little bit about crowdfunding. And as you can see on the left side here, there are 4 types of crowdfunding. So it's quite useful, I think, to just start off explaining the 4 different types of crowdfunding. There's equity funding, there is lending, there's donation, and there's reward. And on this map, I have also mapped out the 17 players that we have in our association, split on kind of who is doing what. And on the equity piece on the top, there's kind of 1 type of equity. But on lending, we split it in 2. There are those who lend to businesses and those who lend to people, similar to competitors as forbrukslån. On reward, you have someone who are playing in both the reward and the donation place. Splice being owned by SpareBank 1 Gruppen, where SMN is a member of. And also a couple of players who are only donation. And how this model basically works, it's a similarity across all of those types, is that the platform is in the middle. And on the one side, you have people with money, people like yourself, investors, or people who want to donate. And on the other side, you have either companies or private people who want to get money for a good cause or for their business. And what we as a platform do is that we connect the 2 sides. We make it easier and then receive the money, and we have IT systems, given that we're in the fintech space, and make sure that we connect and do all of this. So without us, you don't need the banks. So basically, we're cutting out the bank as a middle layer between getting money and giving money. This is a slide trying to show you a bit the size and the magnitude of how this is. And this has taken the numbers from the UK, where of course every country is different. But this is just showing how the amount of money is distributed across the 4. So lending is the biggest piece, where business is again the biggest chunk, where P2P lending and other types of lending. Equity is 8%, reward and donation the smaller pieces. But reward and donation in Norway is much bigger because Splice and Bidra.no and Startskudd from DNB they've been really early, and that's why actually in Norway it's bigger. But I have a couple of examples here of when it's relevant, and equity is typically early phase, but you have to have proven and you have to have a concept, you have shown something. And I think we should actually give a hands of applause to Wavefoil here in Trondheim, who this week collected $480,000. So congrats to you guys, because I saw you're in the room. And they used Folkinvest, who also will be here speaking afterwards, as a platform. On lending, I think the first case on the business side was Lunch.no, who managed to get 1 million NOK as a loan, where you typically have to be a bit more established. You have to be able to pay back on the mortgage, but then again, you don't have to give away any equity. On the reward and donation, Movie Mask is a good example. I think it's Startskudd and DNB, where they were on stage with DNB, and Rune Bjerke said that he was buying a movie mask for his kids, and then suddenly the whole room just took off and was buying like crazy. So there's different ways of doing it, but there's many good examples. And then also the last one is, given that I'm from Rogaland, that you might not hear given I'm speaking English, but we have something called Trollpikken, which we're a bit proud of. The problem was that someone cut it down. So then they had to do a crowdfunding to re-erect the rock, and they managed within record time to collect the money, and they got publicity in Japan in the biggest newspapers over there and so on. So you can use crowdfunding for quite a lot of varying purposes. When do you use the different types? This is just a kind of horizon of when you need funding in the life cycle of a company. And typically you have an idea, then you have a prototype, then you're in the startup phase, early growth, expansion, and only at the far end of the right side is when the investment banks like Pareto, ABG, Arctic, that they suddenly come in and say, we can help you with the funding. But there's a lot of stages before that, and in those phases, typically donation is first relevant. You can ask for money, the day after you have an idea. But equity comes in and then lending comes in. So you kind of have to look at where you are in the phase of what is most relevant. I've also tried to kind of show at the early growth state, actually all of the three types of funding might be relevant. There are different pros and cons. Some companies are more, have a cooler product like the Movie Mask, then maybe you can easier do reward. If you have a B2B product, it is really hard to do donation and reward because you're selling to big businesses, and normal people don't want to give money to a company who are B2B typically. So that's a little bit about when you use it. I've just taken one example, given I have the data from a funding partner, to show you what type of companies are actually applying for this. And we have more than 700 companies who have approached us and asked, and you can see geographically, it's all over Norway, so it's not something which is only in the big cities. The type of companies that are approaching us is a lot of AS, shareholder companies, but also enkeltmannsforetak, sole proprietorship. And also on the right side, you can see how old are these companies who are approaching and asking for money. And a lot of people think it's only new startup companies, but actually, as you can see, a lot of companies are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and older. And also, if you look at how much money are these companies making, and yes, some of these companies are making less than 400,000. There are also companies that are making more than 10 million in revenue who are not getting their needs fulfilled by the normal and day-to-day bank, where they are approaching crowdfunding to check out. So a lot of different type of companies can fit in. And just to show you a little bit of statistics, this is a graph showing internationally how big crowdfunding is. And you have kind of split it out on Europe, America, and Asia. And Asia is the chunk in the bottom. So in China, this is really, really huge. But it's also really big in America and Europe. And what I think is coolest about it all is if you look at that 213% number, that is the CAGR, or the compounded annual growth rate, which is basically saying that it's growing not twice a year, but 3 times the size each year. So you are here today, you might be hearing about crowdfunding for the first time. It's because in Norway we are really lagging behind, but I believe, and I think I speak for behalf of my crowdfunding friends here, that this will become really big in Norway too, and we are just in the start of seeing that. Norway is here shown compared to our neighbors, and we don't like to be worse than Denmark and Sweden. We are really, really lagging behind. So this was 2015. And now you can also see the numbers 2016 and 2017. But I think in 2018 for Norway, we might be on 100 million. That's going to happen. So let's see where we end up. We're only halfway. If you guys start giving money, you will help this number increase. But I think we're just in kind of the beginning phase. Also, we are 17 platforms in the association. So there were only like, I think 10 platforms, yes, last year and the year before, like 4 platforms. So the number of platforms is, of course, a symbol of the number of growth that's going into this area. So last slide, try to kind of put all the 17 members again on the charter. Some are doing multiple types of funding. Some are only focused on one type. But I'm really looking forward to hear each of the platforms here today on stage, explaining what they are doing different. There's a lot of different models and shapes and color to this. And I'm looking forward to a cool and interesting day here with you guys today. So thank you.
Thank you, Geir.